Well, it just keeps getting better and better for Sebastian Vettel as the German secured his 10th win of the season with victory in Korea. McLaren's Lewis Hamilton had a stronger weekend and finished the race second with Vettel's teammate Mark Webber coming home in third. And as always, Will Vincent is here with me to review the Grand Prix. Will, an exciting Grand Prix from start to finish.
Yeah, it was good Grand Prix. Again, they seemed to enjoy having a safety car in the middle of it to spice things up. But yeah, it was a good Grand Prix, a good result, and it showed that Red Bull can be put under pressure at times, but then Vettel can still just drive away.
Change of mood now, and moving away from Formula 1, British motorsport fans will have woken up to the tragic news in the early hours of Monday morning. The 2005 IndyCar Series champion Dan Wheldon died following a massive accident at the Las Vegas Indy 300 and was one of 15 drivers involved in the crash. Wheldon in 2005 became the first Englishman to win the Indy 500 since Graham Hill in 1966. And in 2005, Wheldon won the Drivers' Championship in only his second full season. Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button and Mark Webber are some of those who paid tribute to a truly talented driver, and everyone here at Formula1 FanCast send our condolences to Wheldon's family. Will, I know you are a massive IndyCar fan. How good a driver was Dan Wheldon?
Dan Wheldon was possibly the best oval racer of his generation when he was around. The Indy 500 is one of the three biggest races in the world. It's one of the Triple Crown of motorsports, and his average finish in 9 starts was 7th, and that's something that's unheard of. Just when, things are going to get better, something always happens to take one of someone's life who done so much in the sport. You had Ayrton Senna in Formula 1, you had Dale Earnhardt Sr. in NASCAR, you had Greg Moore, and now Dan Wheldon in IndyCar. I would like to take this point to dispel some of the myths that have been going around in BBC. They claim that the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, because it's only 1.5 mile track, wasn't suitable for racing on. In the last 5 years at least half of the tracks that have been raced on have been 1.5 milers. Admittedly, yes, this was the biggest field that had been in a race, but that was by one car.
Okay, well, coming on to the Korean Grand Prix, and this time round we'll start reviewing the teams at the back of the field. HRT's Daniel Ricciardo was unable to set a time in qualifying, but come the end of the race, the Aussie finished ahead of his more experienced teammate Tony Liuzzi and Virgin Racing's Jerome D'Ambrosio. Will, good effort from Ricciardo.
Yeah, and they always say in Formula 1, if you beat your teammate, you're halfway there to doing a good job. And by beating your teammate in a team like HRT, when you haven't got many other people to beat, that's important.
And a huge weekend in a couple of weeks' time for Narain Karthikeyan, who'll be back in the HRT at his home Grand Prix in India.
Yeah, it's so nice that you actually will have an Indian driver on the grid for the Indian Grand Prix. It would have been such a shame, after the amount of time that the Indian Grand Prix organisers have been lobbying to get the Grand Prix, to not have a home driver there come race day. So, and I think, regardless of where he qualifies, where he finishes, having at least one hometown hero is always a good thing when you're organising and running a Grand Prix. And you could see that, for example, Germany, Spain, Italy. It's always when they have hometown heroes, it just cranks it up a little notch. And remember that Spain didn't watch Formula 1 until Fernando Alonso came along and started winning in 2004.
Well, at Marussia Virgin, Jerome D'Ambrosio finished yet another race, and Will D'Ambrosio is giving his teammate Timo Glock something to think about, and Glock hasn't exactly had it all his own way this year.
No, he's not. D'Ambrosio's done a very strong and solid job this season, and again, when you're in a team that can't contend for race points every weekend, then, that's what you need to do. And when you're in D'Ambrosio's case, where, you can pick up the odd point here and there, then you need to be consistent to make use of opportunities that are presented to you. Despite the fact that they award points halfway down the field, the last 2 points, as is historic in Formula 1, is always fought by about 4 or 5 teams at times. So being able to be there when it matters and capitalise on opportunities that are given to you is almost as important as, trying to make that crucial overtake in lap 4 of a race.
Well, Heikki Kovalainen had a great day at the office as the Finn finished Sunday's race 14th ahead at both Saubers. Will, great effort from Heikki, and you have to say, Team Lotus's race pace is improving race by race.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget that in the event that none of the back three teams score a point in the championship, then it will be the team who finishes highest up the running order, then that will get that crucial 10th place, or get the TV money. And it's worth so much being that 10th fastest team in Formula 1. Back in the day when there's only 20 drivers, everyone used to get it. But now it's such an important thing to make sure you can finish in the top 10 in the championship. And Lotus are currently, the one that's there. They've got the highest finish of all those cars. And again, it might take some absolute freak of nature for Spaniard or Cosworth to, get a better finish. I think it's P12 Lotus have got. So, if they get any better, they'll score a point anyway. And it would be nice to see Lotus score a point, because out of the three teams, they really have put the effort in this season, and they have done a really good job.
And we mentioned earlier that the Indian Grand Prix will be a big weekend for Karthikeyan. It will also be a weekend to look forward to for Karun Chandhok.
Yeah, it will be a really interesting race for Chandhok. Slightly better car as well. It all comes down to pressure. Will he adapt to the pressure, or will he fold to the pressure? If he adapts to it and drives with it rather than against it, then he's got a good chance of trying to get a point at the Grand Prix. Out of all the teams, again, he's probably one of the drivers that could possibly jump in, do something magical. He's fresh. He could have been playing in that simulator at the Indian Grand Prix track for months and months and months now. And yeah, it's potential. But, at the same time, he can't expect miracles.
It was another struggling weekend for Williams, as Rubens Barrichello finished 12th after qualifying 18th, and Pastor Maldonado retired from the race. Will, the end of the season can't come sooner enough for Williams.
Yeah, and it's a shame to see Williams doing so badly. Currently sitting ninth in the Constructors' Championship, pretty much the last of the main teams. And it's such a shame when you think about the rich heritage and the history of Williams. I honestly can't say I've ever seen them have a season so bad. They are historically, the last of the privateers, the last of the teams that do things their way. It's such a sad sight to see. I mean, they almost had a resurgence when, Montoya came in, then they almost had a little bit of a resurgence again.
And it's a shame where they are, because Williams are a team that have a number of world champions driving for them, and they're a team that should be competing at the very front.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can go back from Pablo Montoya, Jacques Villeneuve, Damon Hill, Ayrton Senna. Jenson Button started his career there. Williams have always been one of the smartest thinking teams in Formula 1. Obviously, that's where Adrian Newey cut his teeth for a number of years. And they always used to just be quietly out there, winning races, winning championships. And Sir Frank and Patrick Head have always been a great combination. But again, I think that development on that car has not been good this year.
Force India's Paul Di Resta had another decent weekend as the Scot finished the race 10th ahead of his teammate Adrian Sutil, who came home in 11th, finishing just outside the points. And for Di Resta, another points finish.
Another points finish. He beat Sutil again. These two seem to be squabbling qualifying speeds and race finishes more than any other team in Formula 1 out there. And you know what? Not only is it good for them as a constructor, but it's good for the two drivers as a whole. The fact that they are so closely matched and they've both got tracks that they're better suited to than the others, it means that they can work together to help improve each other's performance, but they've also got that quiet competitiveness at the back of the garage that people forget at times. I mean, they're not always teammates. When they're on track, the first thing they want to do is beat each other to the checkered flag, and it's nice to see the two guys, racing hard all season, not taking anything for granted, and just having a good season for both of them. That is the most important thing. And I mean, you can tell, Sutil is sat in 11th in the Constructors' Championship, ahead of like Kobayashi and Alguersuari, Perez, and that, people who have good races, but then, have the tendency to not do so well every so often. And Di Resta is only 7 points behind him in 14th, and for a rookie, that's really good.
Well, Force India were not quite able to beat Toro Rosso in Korea, but along with Karthikeyan and Chandok Force India will once put in a strong showing in front of the home crowd at the Indian Grand Prix.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think Vijay Mallya would have come up with some few tricks up his sleeve. I think, it's going to be a good weekend for Force India. It's been a race which they've been lobbying for so long. It's been a race which they've had quite a little bit of involvement in, not only promotion but elsewhere. And I think come the race, it'll be interesting to see where the Force India's come out, whether they prepared specifically for this race, or if it's just another race for them that will end up doing well or not so well at.
Toro Rosso were celebrating a double points finish as Jaime Alguersuari came home in 7th, with Sebastian Buemi, his teammate, finishing 9th. A strong weekend for the team and great drives from both Alguersuari and Buemi.
Oh yeah, and it shows that the Toro Rossos can find pace by themselves when they're not getting handouts from the daddy team down at Red Bull. Toro Rosso have always been, if you look back in their history, one of the unsung heroes of Formula 1. All the way back then they were Minardi, and when they weren't Minardi for a bit, and then they were Minardi again. They've always been a good team, a solid team. And how they can, with what is still quite limited resources, do so well and put in some really good efforts at times is really nice to see. And if they could just ramp their consistency up a little bit more, they could be, strong contenders for that midfield battle that goes on week in, week out.
Daniel Ricciardo has been tipped for a race seat with Toro Rosso next season, but if both Alguersuari and Buemi do score points from now to the end of the season, surely they've got to stay with the team next year.
Unfortunately, in some of the midfield teams, it comes down to a few things, one of which is money. Who can bring the most sponsorship money to a team? And despite the fact that Toro Rosso have their funding mainly from Red Bull, they still need to find other bits of it elsewhere. And let's not forget, Daniel Ricciardo is a Red Bull man. So it's a case of, well, do they want to bump him up now? Should they give him another full season elsewhere? Or you could have it so that, the three of them alternate lineups throughout the weekend. I don't know, throughout the season even.
As for Mercedes, Nico Rosberg finished 8th with teammate Michael Schumacher having to retire from the race. How would you, Will, assess the Korean weekend for Mercedes?
Could have been better, but that wasn't their fault for once. I'll tell you what, with Schumacher, it was so nice to see his demeanour after he got taken out by Vitaly Petrov. How he wasn't just screaming, oh, he wrecks me, oh, he should be banned, oh, the stewards need to do this, that and the other. It's just like, yeah, I got wrecked out, but that's racing at times. And that's a Michael Schumacher that, I've always loved. He knows how to give a lot of punishment on the racetrack, but he also knows when it doesn't go his way, it's kind of that full circle, double-sided coin effect. For Rosberg, it was a really good race. He did well. I mean, obviously, he would have been liked to have finished that one position higher. But, that Mercedes didn't seem to have, for some reason, the straight line speed this weekend, which they're so famous for.
No surprises that Petrov got a 5-place grid drop for the next Grand Prix.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Petrov, it was a stupid accident. Unless something broke in the car and they didn't tell us, that was a very stupid accident. And, Petrov is a good driver if he just calms down.
The Ferraris of Fernando Alonso and Felipe and Massa finished Sunday's race 5th and 6th, and I'm sure Ferrari will be hoping for better, and it's unlike Alonso to say, I give up.
Yeah, that was at least some light-hearted entertainment when he realised he wasn't really going to be able to challenge Button, but wanted it to make as though he was giving up when secretly deep down he wasn't. But, that's Alonso. He likes playing mind games for people, and good on him for at least doing so. For Massa, it was another okay weekend, but he can't seem to get his full race weekends together at times, and was desperately slow on race pace.
And despite finishing 5th and 6th on Sunday, Will, Ferrari are still capable of winning some races come the end of the year.
Yes, unless they've decided to give up for the weekend, for the season, and concentrate on next year's car. Which now they know they have no realistic chance of, winning the championship, either one of them, then they might just say, okay, we'll concentrate on next year's cars and use this as a bit of a development to put some of the pieces on. And if they do that, then they're using their Friday test sessions to do stuff that will make them slow, and then they've got to play catch up. They might win a race. They might win Brazil, you never know, but it'll be interesting to see what they do for the rest of the season.
Well, it was a much better weekend for Lewis Hamilton, as 2008 world champion finished the race second ahead of Red Bull's Mark Webber, qualifying on pole, finishing the race second, and no mistakes. Obviously, Lewis will have been disappointed not to have won the race, but it was a better showing from him nonetheless.
A good showing for Hamilton. Qualifying on pole, that's always an achievement this season. Finishing second is always a good achievement, but he wasn't happy with it, the fact that, he wanted to bounce back. But it's a good showing. It shows that he's still got the determination when he needs it. He lost the lead a little bit sillily. I mean, surely you would have protected that inside line a little bit more, going down that straightaway, knowing that Vettel's right behind you, and how quickly he closed up at the end of Sector 1, possibly without Kurz.
And he had a great battle with Webber during the race, and it was just the weekend he needed to get his season back on track.
Oh yeah, he needed this weekend to show that, Lewis Hamilton is still alive. He can still race well. And he did have a good race with Webber that will boost his confidence a little bit as well. The fact that they can race too wide for a series of corners and not crash into each other, because of the fact that there's not a red and white car side next to him. It's a dark blue and multicoloured car. All of a sudden, it seems to be that when he's not racing Massa, he's fine. And he did some really, really good, smart driving around Webber, which was great to watch on the TV, and, helps him secure that second place.
For Jenson Button, he didn't exactly make the best of starts to the race, as he ended up 6th after the first lap, but the Brit was able to finish the race 4th, and will, I guess, the opening lap of the race cost Jenson a place on the podium. Yeah,
and you know what? It's still a good result for Button. While Button's been getting seconds, Hamilton's been in the wall, so to only finish 2 places behind him isn't that bad a result. Yeah, he would have loved to have got the podium, but at the same time, it was still a good, solid result, and he can feel comfortable in himself that he's producing these good, solid, comfortable results, while his teammate, for all we know, could be in the wall again next weekend.
But overall, it was not a bad weekend for McLaren, and you'd expect them to be competing for race wins in the final 3 races of the season.
Oh yeah, the next 3 tracks, India will be an interesting race. McLaren's got a lot of sponsors who I'd like to impress over in India. And, you've got Brazil, which, they've both had so much history there, winning championships at that track. And, it's going to be an interesting 3 races. Will Red Bull still be relentless as they are? Will McLaren try and be relentless as they are? Or will they all just stop development? And will it just be a case of, okay, let's see who can do the best of where we got to so far?
And finally, we come on to Red Bull. Congratulations to the team for winning their 2nd consecutive Constructors' title, and there was no stopping Sebastian Vettel once he got past Lewis on the first lap.
Nah, Seb drove the race, his race, and, the funniest thing was how he managed to set the fastest lap in the last lap of the race after he was told to slow down. Obviously those radios mustn't be as clear as we think they are, but Seb now is just out racing for fun. But even when Seb's out racing for fun, he still wants to get pole position, fastest lap and race victories. It's just another statistic for him. And thankfully, we won't have to hear Big Bad Wolf again this season, unless they magically win a 3rd championship that none of us have heard about. It was a great weekend for Vettel, and you could see how he was controlling the pace in front of him. And that safety car didn't help him too much, but he still managed to, put the pressure down when he needed, put up the gap, and then ride around making sure he didn't destroy his tyres too much. And it was, all in all, a great weekend for him. For Webber, not so good, obviously, but it was still a good result for the Australian. It's always nice to see both the Red Bulls doing as well as they are. And let's not forget, Webber, despite his not brilliant performance this year, was still still a major factor in helping Red Bull secure the Constructors' Championship this year.
And we also talked about Hamilton having a better weekend. Webber didn't have a bad weekend at all, did he?
It wasn't a bad weekend, no. It was in fact, a rather good weekend. And as I said, at one point it looked like it could have been Webber finishing second. It was an interesting battle for a good few laps. But I think, Hamilton had the desire more than anything else that weekend, and that's what gave him the position. I think, it'll be interesting to see what Webber does for the rest of the season. He needs to get a victory if he can, just to prove that he does still exist. Otherwise, next season could just be his farewell tour.
Well, Will, thank you very much for coming in to review the Korean Grand Prix. You can visit www.formula1fancast.com to keep up to date with the latest Formula 1 news, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Formula1 FanCast, and you can also follow me at Baggies20. From me and Will, cheerio.